in general, I'm a huge believer in a team process. And I think that in our industry, the beauty of it is that we all realize we can't accomplish what we want to accomplish on our own because there is no one discipline that is adequate, and that we're completely dependent on each other. And I love that team dynamic. And so the tough decisions require getting the right team of people. And I love diverse opinions, and I love nothing more in our management teams when we have really lively, sometimes heated discussions. And it's really focused on making sure that all those different views are heard. I think when I look at some of the biggest mistakes that we've made, it's when we look back, we say, why didn't we challenge that assumption a little more? How come we just took that for granted? And so I think it's really inviting different views where you know that you don't have all the information, being really clear about what additional information do you need to get. And then at the end of the day, it really is important to ensure that there is alignment around the decision. It doesn't mean that everybody says, if I were alone in the world, this is what I would do, but that people say, while it might not have been what I would do, I actually can support that because I've heard all of the other perspectives. But if there's something that someone says, I'm going to fall on my sword, then that means we need to keep discussing it until we end up convincing each other on what the right path forward is.
Chris, do you take that same approach? Or?
I do, and I don't want to repeat because that's exactly the approach I would take in terms of teams coming together. So to just add a little more to that, I would say I always like to start with what facts we have available. So I tend to be an analytic, gather the facts, present the facts, have everyone look at it from a different dimension, which is great. And then once you've gone through this wonderful process you've outlined, I think the other thing is when you make that tough decision, communicating the decision. Oftentimes we make the decision and we don't spend enough time with our employees or our investors communicating why we made that decision, what was the rationale, what are the benefits for it, and not communicating it once, but communicating it multiple different ways over a period of time, I think is important around tough decisions.
I guess coming back to you on the question and saying, are you asking us about tough business decisions? Or are you asking us about tough career decisions? What are you asking?
I was putting them all together, but I can see an argument to separate them.
Well, I guess I certainly agree with both the panelists in a business decision. Joe Boland, who was the chief scientific officer at Millenium, he used to say that, well, it's not used to, he still does, say drug development is the most complex team sport in the world. So, if it's going to be a drug development decision, or, it's one of those, you're going to have to bring different disciplines to bear. I think that the challenge is when you are on your own, right? So career decisions put you in that position where you have to actually, you're not going to have the different disciplines. So you can call in a team, right? Your family, people who know you well, people on the outside of your company who you've built close ties with over the years. Because in some ways, when you're making career transition decisions, they can often be quite lonely. Because you can't necessarily talk to the team within the house you're in if you're thinking of leaving the house, right? So you have to think a bit more broadly. And it's one of the things that I say to people, it's really important to think about who is in your network, or who's your, sometimes people call it your personal board of directors. Those people you call on for advice who aren't necessarily your peers and colleagues, because sometimes those are the people you, much as you would like to, you can't necessarily talk to in a time of career transition where you don't necessarily want people to know you might be thinking about that transition. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to highlight that difference.